person coming in. I'll go through the tasks for the week. I was trying to think about how I could, where did my share screen go? There we go. I was trying to think about how we could organize, or how I could organize the classroom for you so that it was easier for you to find all the things that you needed. I know that most everybody's probably using Google Classroom except the dual classes, which are required to use Blackboard. So I'm thinking that what happens is, y'all can tell me if I'm right. I think that what happens is people get into their stuff and they look at their classes, right? And they look to see what's on this little to-do list, right? To help you organize your day and figure out, okay, well, prioritize things. What's coming up today? What's tomorrow? Let me start working on all of those things. So I wanted to go ahead and put the assignments so that they pop up there for you for this class. Is that pretty accurate? Is that what's happening when you go to work on your stuff? Yeah. Okay. So what I did was I went ahead and put the assignments in, and I also put this item on the stream that I'm just going to pin right there at the top for all time. Well, you can't really pin in Google Classroom, but I'm going to try to make it always appear at the top of the stream right there. And what it has is like the link to our Zoom meetings, the link to the formatives, the link to our class video archive. Every time we have class, I'm recording it, and I made a private playlist, well, unlisted playlist. So you can always go and watch that if you were absent. And then the link to that is right here. So this whole thing is just gonna be sitting there all the time. And then I'll change out the planner for the week so that you always have like everything at the top there. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes stuff that makes sense to me doesn't make sense to other people, but I don't know. I'm hoping that that makes things a little more streamlined for you so that you can always just click right here to go to the meeting. You can always just click right here to go to your formative and so on. All right, let's go to our agenda for today. So, oh, look, I already did number one. I should put little checks. I wanted to spend some time before we got into the material for this week going through the things from last week, because I want to make sure that everybody's up to speed. We had some people who were missing on the first day. We had some, I know people are having technical glitches and things like that. So I just want to spend some time going through the things that you should have worked on in the past, well, week and 2 days, right? Because today's Wednesday. But you should have created your Google Calendar. That was an assignment from last time, and you should have sent me the link. So if you're having trouble with that, there was a walkthrough on the little PowerPoint that I made for you, and you should have submitted your link. I did put those into the gradebook. It was an easy 100. If you submitted your calendar link, then you have 100. If you submit it late, you can have a 90. Or I don't know, maybe if I'm feeling mean, it'd be 89. Should it be an 89? Those people that didn't do it, just deny them that one little point. So if you haven't made your Google Calendar, you need to do that. I will be giving a grade for the Google Calendar at a surprise time. That should scare you just a little bit. The surprise means that basically sometime during this 6 weeks, I'm going to go in and look at your calendar and see if you have been keeping it up to date and give you a grade based on that. So you don't have to keep your whole life on there. You don't even have to keep all your classes on there. This calendar is just for this class. So I need to be able to see your studying time for the ACT, TSI, SAT, whatever. I need to see how you're doing on your project, which we're going to start talking about today, and where you are with things in terms of scheduling and planning. So it's going to be a surprise inspection, and as long as you keep up with your due dates, you should be fine with that. But if you haven't even shared your Google Calendar with me yet, then you need to do that. You're a little bit behind on that if you haven't. You can tell if you have or not by the gradebook, because I put in those grades. Also, last time I asked you to look over the syllabus, and I made a little walkthrough video, so hopefully you had time to do that. I wanted to just entertain any questions that you might have This is a different kind of class. It has a lot of research components and a lot of student choice. And so you'll find that it's different than a lot of other classes that you might have taken. The focus is on preparing for college, but also doing some in-depth research and keeping our skills of reading and writing and researching, fluid for us, so that when we get to college and our future plans, we don't have a stall out or anything like that. So when you were looking through the syllabus, are there any questions, or is there anything on there that you want me to talk about a little bit more? No? Give it a few seconds just to make sure. It's important to remember that this class does have extra weight for the GPA. I think last year there were some people that entered the class not really knowing what it was and not realizing that it was going to be a class that has expectations and projects and things to do. So if you're not sure why you're in this class, you should probably communicate with me about that. It's not overwhelming. I don't think it's at the level of an AP course or a dual enrollment course, but there are expectations for the course. So, and because it's got that extra weight, I want you to do well and have that benefit you in your GPA overall. So keep that in mind. Not hearing any questions on the syllabus. So let me go back to today's agenda. I want to talk a little bit about the formatives. The formatives, if you all can click on it right now, go to the formative website. There is a question for today. Actually, we only have one day this week because Monday was, we were off, well, you were off, and Friday is a B day this week. We're rotating through, so this week, Friday is a B. Friday's a B, didn't sound right. Go to formative, and you should notice on formative, well, I don't want to go to it, but you can go to it. You should notice that I looked at all your formatives from last week. You do get a grade for doing the formative. So it's your attendance proof on those asynchronous days, or if you miss class on the synchronous days. But I'm also giving a grade. They're not throwaway assignments, and I think that they're thought-provoking and taking you some time to do. So they're going to count. The way that those formatives are graded is on a 5-point scale, each one. So 5 points is kind of like, oh, good in-depth answer, nice thinking, I can see your thought process, all of that. 4 is kind of like, really solid answer, I think you did a good job on that. 3 is kind of like, I guess you answered the question. 2 is like, probably not very in-depth, didn't answer the question, didn't really deal with it very much. 1 is kind of like the pity point, where it's sort of like, I guess you wrote something, but I'm not impressed at all. And a 0 is if you don't do it. So those are going to add up when you have, 2 or 3 of them in a week. The formative program is going to start keeping an average of your score, a percentage. So that percentage is going to show up twice in the grade book. Once before progress reports. So as soon as progress reports are about to go in, I'm going to drop a column. I'm going to go to formative. And I'm going to say, okay, what's your average on all your formatives so far? So if you have a lot that you haven't done, not only is it going to affect your attendance, but it's going to start bringing your average down. I think they're important questions. I'm taking the time to read them. You'll see I'm giving you feedback and having a dialogue with you on them. I'm engaging with you in those conversations. So it's important. And I think that if you do something with that much, to it, you should get a grade for it. So then that's going to be a minor grade before the progress report. Then before the report card grade goes in, I'm going to put it in again. I'm going to go back to formative and say, okay, what's the average now? I'm going to put in the average of the formative, and that's going to count as a major grade, because really that's a lot of writing in the course of 6 weeks. So that's going to count as a major grade in that spot. So do make sure that you're doing your formatives. You have to do them on time for attendance. And they're timely questions for the class too. A lot of education questions right now because that's our topic. So do make sure that you do them. If you are having trouble accessing formative, they open every A day morning at 8, and they close at, you know, like the end of the day, 11:55 or something like that. So that's the way that works. Are there any questions about the attendance part of that? Because attendance is a whole different ball game these days. No. So I'll just say attendance gets corrected the next day. So say it's an asynchronous day and you have to go do your formative and you don't do it, just forget or whatever. I'll have to mark you absent. But if you do it before 11:55, then the next day I'll go ahead and mark you what they call remote asynchronous present. But it's not I'm not gonna be sitting there all night waiting for people to submit and changing their attendance as it happens. So by the end of the day, I'll send in my attendance, and then I go back and change it the next day if there were additional formatives that were done. Hopefully that makes sense. Yes, more or less. All right. Another thing that I asked you to do this past week, and it's going to be important that you did it because we're going to be moving on into our project on education reform this week. And that is this little exploration that I had you do on education reform. I don't think anybody thinks that education is perfect, like especially now. But what are some things that are important to you that need to be changed? What are some things that could improve the education system in your mind? And so you should have gone through this slideshow. There were some videos to watch. I kind of set it up as a little like self-tutorial situation. There's some articles that you should have read. All of this is preparation for the project I'm going to have you start this week. So hopefully you had a chance to go through and make some notes about things that stuck out to you, made some notes about things that seemed more significant to you than other things. Everybody has priorities, so maybe certain things are more vital to you than somebody else. So that item is super important. And if that part slipped your mind and you didn't do that, there wasn't a grade for that, but it's going to end up being a grade in the project. You need to go back and do that before you start working on this week's stuff. All right, so any questions on any of those things from last week? Everybody's up to speed? Yes, okay. All right, so then let's look at the tasks for this week. Obviously you have a formative to do today at some point. The question, you probably already saw it when we went to the formative site. The question's already open, so make sure that you get to that today. I did put that in, I think I put that in, didn't I? In the classwork, I think I put that in as an assignment. Yeah, so in order to keep you organized on the grid over here, I put in complete today's formative over here, just to remind you. You can just mark it done. You don't have to do anything in the Google Classroom for it. You can just mark it done, but I'm thinking it's a good to-do list. It's a good like organizer to keep things straight for you, if that makes sense. Okay. All right, so things that I want you to work on this week. Starting next week, I'm going to have individual conferences with each one of you. And what I want to talk about in that conference, you can schedule it when it's convenient for you, but I want to talk about where you are with your college planning, your college admissions essays, your schools that you're planning to apply to, where are you with your testing? And I know that this is a little overwhelming. A lot of people are like, I just started school. Well, Apply Texas, usually we do that by November. And FAFSA opens in October. So, you know, senior year's fast, and I don't think they're slowing down just because of this whole, you know, virtual learning situation. So I'm here to help you get through it. The first thing that I want to have you complete this week is the college planning survey. And you can see that in the Google Classroom. It's an assignment that you need to submit by Monday. So if you go to classwork, you'll see under college planning survey, it looks like this. Basically, what I want you to do is give me some feedback about where you are personally, because everybody's in a different spot with their choices and their planning. And I've already looked at a few people's college admissions essays. So I want for you, it should give you your own copy there on Google Classroom. I want you to go ahead and think about and fill in this chart in terms of your ideas about your choices for after high school, college entrance exams, and a resume if you have done that or not. So I want you to fill that out and submit it to me. The deadline is Monday, because we're going to go over some of those things when we have our conference together. I want to help you where you are with what you need. And if I just assume everybody's doing the same thing in class, it doesn't help people very much. So our conference will be about you and where you are with your, college planning situation and how we can get you to where you need to be in preparations. Okay, so that one's just to fill in the chart, really. Besides that, the other thing I want you to do is to continue your work on your research project. So there is a big research project that we're working on, and it changes through the course of the year. The first topic is one that I'm giving you. The second topic that's coming up later is going to be something that you choose, and it's going to be directed towards your future goals. But this one, because we're just starting out, is going to be on education reform. That's why I was giving you those videos to watch and things to think about in that topic. So this week, I want you to write a proposal for your project. You have to determine what you want to research in the broad category of education reform. And then I want you to pick something that you think is important. If you click right here on this guide sheet, I'll go through it with you. This kind of walks you through how to get to a proposal. And your proposal's due next Wednesday. I want you to submit to me a proposal for your research. I will be either approving it or not approving it, but most of them get approved. So let's go through this sheet. This is sort of a guide to help you prepare for the proposal. The goal of this project that we're working on from now until about the middle of October is to work on a project that will be presented in the format of your choice. By that I mean, it's not a paper necessarily, unless you want to write a paper. It's not a PowerPoint unless you want to do a PowerPoint. So part of your proposal is, I think I want to do a video. Or I think that I want to make a lesson for younger people. Or I think I want to write a letter to the superintendent of my school district, whatever it might be. So the format of your choice, I'm not going to dictate how you're going to represent what you've learned about an education problem. But whatever project you choose for the format of it, I want for you to explain a problem in education that you think is significant, why it's significant, and what are some possible real solutions that you've researched that could work to either improve or solve that problem, because some of those problems are pretty complicated. So some people might choose, well, you know what, lunch, right? The food that schools serve has perpetually been a problem. Kids don't like it, and it's not the most nutritious, and so you could go in that direction. Or you could say, you know what, there needs to be more choice in the courses that students take. So your job in preparing the proposal, there's probably thousands of different topics that you could think of under this category. So your next step is to determine what your significant problem is going to be that you're going to focus on. It needs to be fairly narrow because we're not taking from now until December to work on these projects. So it needs to be something kind of bite-sized. And I want for you to take the notes that you used last week that you created and do a little bit of research. Who's doing work in this area? Like, choose something that you kind of clued into with that background information, or find something new and figure out, okay, who's researching that? Where is there some data? Where can we find out, you know what, the kids in Finland do better on their math tests and why, or whatever your issue is. And where are they tackling that issue? Have they been successful? Who's working on making that a better situation already? And take notes on that. Make sure that you're using reliable sources. Most of you that were in my dual class last year are already on a good track with that. But if you're not sure about whether a source is reliable, there's a video that I included here for you, because that's essential. You can't use biased information for a research project. So make sure that you're getting valid information. Keep track of your sources, because we will be documenting no matter how we write this up or present it, it will still need to have a source list. So keep track of your sources that you use. And once you've narrowed it down to one problem, one issue that you really feel is significant, that you're passionate about it, that you really feel like there could be some solutions, I would like for you to write a proposal. So that's when you will move on to step 2. The proposal is due a week from today. So you've got like a week to kind of think through and look at different topics in education reform and think about where you want to go with your project. And your proposal needs to come in. It can come in early. If you already know what you want to do and you want to write up your proposal this afternoon, then, like, go for it. But if you want a little bit of time to think, do that research. And there's a proposal format. And if you click here, I'll walk you through that. So usually it's about 1 page, and it needs to have these parts to it. So this is, I guess you could download this and just sort of like delete the stuff off of it if you wanted to. But you're going to have all of these parts to your proposal. So you're proposing your own project to me. I'm not telling you what to research, except it needs to be in the realm of education reform. I'm not telling you how your final project will be organized, or like what the form of it will be. You're deciding that. You're also deciding your due date and sort of the focus of your project. All of that is in your proposal. And then we'll talk about your proposal also at the conference. So when you sign up for your conference, we'll talk about your college stuff, and we'll also talk about this project that you have set forth for yourself. So you're gonna just fill in the abstract background. What do you want to accomplish, and the objective? Who's your audience? Maybe the audience isn't me, right? I can only do so much to change education. So maybe there's somebody else. Maybe you need to write to Betsy DeVos, who's the Secretary of Education of the United States of America. I don't know. Who's the appropriate person to address with your project? Small note, if you decide that Betsy DeVos or the superintendent of WISD or whatever is your audience, you are actually going to engage with that person. So you'll have to send the letter. You'll have to, like, present it to, it's not a pretend thing is what I'm saying. So if I'm not your audience, well, I am to a certain extent because I'm grading you, but you and I are going to decide on your grades together. So who's the person that you're addressing in your project? Why is your project significant? What's the impact that could have? How are you going to go about your research and preparing for your project to be completed? That's going to be helpful to you because it will be like your next steps, right? And then what product do you want to form to show your ideas about an important problem and possible solutions? I put a whole bunch of options on the Google Classroom for you. There's like a little link there, but you can also find it under the topics on the classwork. I put a whole bunch of different ones up here that you could consider. You can write a research paper, but I don't know, you've written a lot of papers. Do you want to do another one? You can if you want. But there are lots of other ideas here that you can explore. Maybe you want to do a vlog. Maybe you want to do a public service announcement about how education can be improved. So there's a lot of different ideas here that you can draw on. Choose the one that you think will be the best way for your message to get out there, right? So that's pretty much the proposal. Oh, the time frame. So then you will also need to say when you think it will be completed. We have to have them all submitted by the 10th of October, but if you think that you're going to have it done on a different time frame, then that's fine. A little bit longer, like if you have a really more in-depth project, I might extend that deadline, but that's something we would talk about in your conference. You would put that into your proposal and we would talk about it when it came time to meet up. All right. So this proposal one is due on Wednesday. Or sooner if you're going to do your conference earlier in the week. I have to have your proposal before you do that. Any questions? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Am I just right? Okay, so I did put an example of a successful proposal from last year's class. It's on a different topic. The student wanted to propose doing some research by creating his own garden and harvesting food and that sort of thing. So if you wanted to see what an example proposal is like, I did put one on there. Okay, so then after you make your proposal, I think you could assume that it's going to be approved, but when you submit it, I'll officially approve it. I don't really not approve them. Sometimes we'll have a conversation about it. I don't think it's rigorous enough, or like, oh, my research project is about sleep patterns of myself, and my research is how often I get to sleep. That is not a research project about education reform, right? So obviously we'll talk about your proposal when you have your conference. And so you'll just work on your proposal, your process, and submit it on the day that you and I have decided that it will be submitted. So after this week, most of the time that you have is just going to be working on that project, right? Like all your asynchronous time is going to be focusing on that, so that we could have some checkpoints and individual conferences to see how you're going with it. But basically, that's the assignment. So you can see that there aren't going to be a ton of grades in this class. The formatives are going to be a grade. I gave you like a freebie grade for doing the Google Calendar, all that sort of thing. But the majority grade is going to come from the projects. All right, any questions so far? I know it's a lot. Hopefully I wrote it up in a way that makes sense for you to follow through, right? And go through the project. I want you to be excited about your topic. So keep researching until you find something that you're really interested in. We all know that if we're working on something that like sparks our interest, it's likely that we'll do better with it because we'll want to spend more time with it. So choose something that really is interesting to you. That's my best advice on that. All right, let's go back over here to, we're almost done for today. I did put a number here on number 4, which is that you're going to need to set up a conference with me so that we can talk about your college planning survey and also your proposal. I would like for you to have your conference set up by next Friday, not 2 days from now, next Friday. So as you're working through these things, think about when you want to meet with me about your college planning and your project. I did make a schedule that you can view here. So when you email me, I'll start to put the names on here and you can check it to see what spots are open. I kind of decided that after school time, that 2:45 until 4 would be a good time to set up those conferences. And I think if they're about 15 or 20 minutes, that's plenty. So when you start thinking about when you want to have your conference, you need to have 2 things done. I need to have your college planning thing completed and turned in, and your proposal for your project. So if those 2 things aren't in, I'm not going to set up the conference until those 2 things are done. But then you can email me and let me know what date and time. This starts next week. So if you want to be an early bird, you can get those 2 things done and sign up for Monday. But it goes into the following week too, so that there's enough slots for everybody to meet up with me and talk through where they are with those 2 elements of class. And so you can keep checking back here. It will start populating with names as people start contacting me about the time that they want to reserve. So before you send me an email, make sure you check this list. Otherwise, I'll have to say, well, somebody already has that time. So it'll be a Zoom meeting, just one-on-one. I'm not going to do it in class. I have a separate Zoom for office hours, so we'll do it that way. And yeah, like about 15 minutes to talk through those 2 items one-on-one. And then that way I can guide you a little bit more. I am going to give you a grade for the conference. So usually those are pretty good grades, unless you sit there and go, I don't know. Oh. That's not good communication, right? The last thing is to just put all these dates on your calendar. So sometime in the next day or 2, go in and put all of these due date. Well, maybe not number 1, because that's today. Just get your formative done today. And go ahead and put these due dates on so that you can make sure that you're on time with your assignments and all of that good stuff. That pretty much takes us through the tasks for this week. We do have a lot of one-on-one time because I want to work with you on your specific goals and what it is that you want. A lot of your programs that you're looking at for college, like there's getting into the university, whatever college you're looking at, and then there's getting into the program that you want to study. And those are 2 different processes. So just because you get into Texas A&M doesn't mean that you're in the architecture program. Does that make sense? So sometimes getting into the college is 1 ACT score. You can get in with a 25, 24. But you can't get into the architecture school or the engineering school. They want a 27. So you kind of need to know that, and that's our starting point for some of our discussions in our conferences. If you want to be able to join that and effectively apply to those programs, because they're competitive. I had a student who wanted to go to UT a couple years ago, and we got him into UT, but he didn't get into the School of Music. And that's what he wanted to study. So what do you do if that happens? Yeah, you're at your school, but you're not in your program. I don't want that to happen. I want as many opportunities to be available to you as possible. So we'll start looking at them now, and we'll make our plans, and we'll make sure that you're achieving whatever you need to actually, achieve those. Okay. Are there any questions? I've been talking a lot. Well, when we have our conference, we'll both be talking, but mainly you. Any questions about how any of this stuff works? Kind of a short period for today. Oh, what's your cat's name, Zeke?
It's a Frenchie. I got
it's a bulldog. Oh yeah.
She just looks like a bunny.
She does look like a bunny. What's her name?
His name is Oakley.
Oakley. He looks happy. He's getting scratches. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, then I'm gonna sign off for today. Do think about making your appointments for your conferences and getting started on your project. I'm anxious to start helping you with all of your exciting future goals. I know this year's kind of like a big question mark, but we can start. You should see if Oakley will do your assignments. But work on things, and I'm excited to help you reach your goals, and we can do it. I feel like I'm equipped, and we've got the tools, and even though we're doing it from distance right now, I feel like we can get things going and look toward that future goal for after high school for you, right? Yeah, I believe it. It's going to happen. I'm going to make it happen. Okay? All right. Email me or send me a Google Voice if you have questions and set up time for that conference. And I'll be meeting with you separately and then again next Monday. Okay? All right. I hope you all have a good day. Enjoy your synchronous class period day. I miss you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye, Oakley.